In this episode, I speak to a fellow health coach living in Switzerland. She'd been struggling for a really long time, going from doctor to doctor, searching for answers. But unfortunately, most of them were telling her that it was all in her head. Luckily, she kept going and finally discovered functional medicine. And that's when she really started to get the answers that she'd been looking for and started figuring out why she was struggling as much as she was. And with some relatively straightforward functional medicine testing, she found some food sensitivities that she really wasn't expecting because she was eating such a healthy diet. So she's continued her investigative journey and has discovered another more recent puzzle piece that is keeping her going. But if you'd like to hear more about her story, stay tuned. Thanks for listening. Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters. I'm your host, Mireille Wagner, and today on the show I have a colleague of mine from the health coaching industry, Danna Levy Hoffman. So I know you've said to me that so many people say your name wrong, and most people call you Dana, and it's actually Danna.
Yeah, exactly. That's a story on its own, but I'm Israeli originally, but we moved to America when I was very young. And in Israel, every Dana spells her name D-A-N-A because I don't know, it makes sense. Right. And when I moved there, everyone started calling me Dana. But we moved to the Boston area where D-O-N-N-A would be pronounced Dwana.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yeah, so I was like, neither of those are my name. So I changed it to a spelling that made sense in my head, but now no one pronounces my name right. So okay, there it is.
All right, so Danna is a certified health and lifestyle coach specializing in gut health and is the founder of Organilicious. She's a passionate public speaker, a Jamie Oliver ambassador, and a self-proclaimed health freak who is helping men and women everywhere embrace the new levels of healthy living. Her motto is deliciously sustainable lifestyle changes. So yes. Welcome to the show, Danna.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
This is great to have you. So I interview all my colleagues and get them to tell us about their health stories. And we've spoken briefly about yours. And as far as I remember, you didn't actually have a diagnosis. Is that correct?
I have one now.
Oh, you have one? Okay. I know so many people go and they chase the diagnosis just so that they have something to hang on to.
Yeah.
But in functional medicine, for us, it's really not about the diagnosis. It's just about trying to restore balance. So tell us about your story. Where did it start? It might be quite a long one, but let's listen to it.
I mean, it is super long, but the funny thing is that I only discovered how long it actually was when I went into kind of functional medicine and tried to really figure out what's going on, and basically gave up on regular medicine or whatever you want to call it. Basically, my story is scattered, but it actually started mainly about 12 years ago. I had my kids, I have 2 boys. They're very close in age, so they're 15 months apart. And actually right after the first one was born, I fell into depression quite strongly. And then started a little bit with antidepressants. Mm-hmm. And then quickly got pregnant again, stopped obviously because I didn't want to take any chemicals while being pregnant. And then when the second one was born, things got even worse. I mean, I was stranded in a country where I didn't have any help. There were so many little things that I thought were the reason for a very long list of problems that I had at the time, between depression and I'll give you the list in a bit. But so basically what started me off was going to doctors and telling them, look, this is the whole list of things that I'm suffering from, and please help me, what's going on? And the reply was, it's all in your head, which is a very common answer. I realize now that
my know what it is. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. They don't know. And so they say, well, there's nothing I can do for you except go to a psychiatrist. Mm-hmm. And going to a psychiatrist or psychologist, and them pushing meds at you because they don't know what to do as well. And that's a very kind of typical thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I quickly noticed that it's not really helping. I mean, it didn't really help with the depression, and it didn't help with the list of problems that I had. Obviously, I mean, antidepressant won't help you from eczema and skin issues. It won't
Okay,
help you from
so you had a
inflammation.
whole list of non-related depressive symptoms.
Exactly.
Okay.
And again, I thought I was always kind of connected with, our kind of the holistic view of our body. I didn't think that our arm isn't connected to our brain, isn't connected to our guts. It made sense in my head always. But I still didn't necessarily think that everything will really come together as well. And, I started investigating on my own because I felt a bit lost, and I felt like I wasn't being heard and I wasn't being understood. And I had to get pardon my language, but my shit together, because I had 2 little kids to take care of and a husband who was working, and I didn't get a breather. I didn't get a chance. They both had silent reflux, which they were basically crying the whole time, and in pain. And so I, started investigating on my own, which really slowly led me to what I do today.
So how long was this, sorry to interrupt, this time frame of searching for answers with the, experiencing these symptoms? So you had your kids and you had these bouts of depression and were going to see doctors. And how many doctors did you see? Because I think most
and like endless,
right? Yeah.
Endless. I honestly, I'm not shy at telling off a doctor and walking away and looking for another one. And I must have seen at least 5 or 6 experts who had 0 answers for me, including psychiatrists and psychologists and doctors and, everything.
And they were all different experts in terms of the specialists for different things.
Yes. Even the gynecologist,
yeah.
Every single doctor that I had at the time, I went to and I said, look, please help me. Like, can you please help me? Are any of these connected to anything? Can you help me figure out what's going on? And can you just give me some relief? I mean, I just wanted to feel better because alongside with the depression, I had chronic pains. I had chronic inflammation. I was just exhausted, which of course they said, oh, but you have 2 little kids. Of course you're exhausted. You're not sleeping at night. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure that's not it. And the skin problems, I had eczema and fungus and brain fog, memory problems, monthly sinus infections, sinus infections where, I went to the doctor and he kept x-raying my brain to check that I was telling him the truth, I guess. I don't know. I had massive hair loss. I had tinnitus and very sensitive ears, constant yeast infections, IBS. I mean, the list goes on. I mean, those are just the things that I remembered, but those are basically the things that kind of came up and constantly bothered me. And that was, that for me, that was kind of a turning point. I was also overweight at the time. I was like 20 kilos more than I was ever used to being.
It's hard to imagine you 20 kilos over.
It is hard. I actually posted a picture lately about it and people were like, oh, wow. Okay. Because I didn't let anyone take pictures of me back then. I was so, in my own shell. So I have maybe 2. And it was rough. It was a very rough time. It continued on. I think I was on antidepressants for a good 5 years, 6 years, probably, kind of at the beginning on and off. And then I continued and then I stopped again. But towards the end, I was just kind of like, no, this is not working. I'm not feeling better and I'm not finding, and it's not helping with the other stuff.
Yeah. But, so you and I know what antidepressants do to the gut as well. And so when did things start to change and how did you figure out what was going on and begin your journey back to health?
I just started looking things up online, to be fully honest with you. I just started looking. I discovered Dr. Hyman, who is one of my heroes by now, because he says it like it is and he brings in a lot of other experts so that people understand that even, something like IBS, which so many people have, could mean so many things. And there is a way to help the body, but we need to figure out what's going on. And IBS, for people who don't know, IBS is kind of like, it's kind of like when you go to a doctor with your baby and they say, oh, they have colic. It's kind of, it's a word that means they have something, but we don't really know.
It's a cluster of symptoms.
Yeah. And we can't do anything about it, basically. Right. Same for colic, same for, same for IBS. But now we know that there are ways to treat it and there are ways to figure it out. And IBS is actually another symptom, basically, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I started following him. I started reading up a lot about it. I ordered way too many books from Amazon and was just really, submerged in this information, and decided to go and find a proper functional medicine doctor. And I found one that I could trust, basically, because I heard so many things about so many doctors, and just wanted to find one that I could really, really trust. And I found one incredible doctor who did a huge blood and stool test, and asked, and I was sitting at the doctor's office for an hour and a half every time for a session. And that was unheard of, because
Right.
I got to speak and I was heard.
Mm-hmm.
And I was, and he would echo things that I told him in the next session that I had with him, which again was unheard of. Who remembers, what doctor remembers about you or lets you talk more than like 15 seconds? So we had a huge blood test and stool test, got the results back. And, that, along with my story, my birth story, and the whole, everything that led to that moment, that information that we collected made me realize how, first of all, I never got a chance when I was a baby. I was a C-section baby. I had a heart murmur, which meant that I was on antibiotics for everything. And so, my whole childhood memory is the flavor of that liquid antibiotics. So I really, really just did not get a chance. I mean, I for a dental checkup,
Mm-hmm.
I would get a full course of antibiotics every single time.
Oh my goodness.
And as you can imagine, because I was on antibiotics, my teeth were in a terrible situation too. So I was just, until age 11, when they were comfortable not giving me antibiotics again, because the heart murmur, the heart grew. So the hole kind of got small. Until then, I was just constantly on antibiotics.
Okay. So your story started really, really early. Yeah. And that you touch on that whole thing about the timeline, because of it starts really at birth or before birth even.
Yeah.
And it's so important. Many people leave that piece out, but in functional medicine, it is an important factor. Okay.
It's a question that you're being asked immediately, and no one else ever asked me that. And so as I was telling him the story, it kind of dawned on me. I was like, oh, no wonder.
Okay, yeah. But this was before you had made any dietary changes, before you'd even started studying health coaching. Is that correct?
So no. So the funny thing was that when I started reading up on functional medicine and on natural healing and things like that, I moved towards a vegan diet. Mm-hmm. It wasn't fully vegan. We ate eggs quite frequently. I mean, I was always obsessed with eggs since I was a baby. And we had butter, and we would eat meat maybe once a month. We would have a dish with meat. But otherwise, I moved very strongly to kind of a more plant-based diet, which helped me lose weight, which helped me feel better. But at the same time, I felt like I'm feeling better, but like there's this wall that I need to break, that I know I can feel better. I know I can, there's the inflammation was still there. The chronic fatigue, it was better, but it was still there. Like I still felt like I had a lot more energy and a lot more kind of to give to the world. So there were certain things that led me to still go and see the doctor. I felt like, okay, great. I've made all of these changes. My diet is perfect, is what I thought, but I need to go and see what's going on and why I'm not, perfect.
Okay. So what came out of all of those tests, and what changes did you have to make after that?
I got so many. So I first of all, the humongous list of food sensitivities that I had.
Okay, so even though you'd be eating a hugely or heavily plant-based diet, you still were experiencing food sensitivities, and most vegan diets are heavily onto gluten, that kind of thing, right? So
I think I mean, we definitely still had the healthy bread, as I call it now, like the whole grains and stuff. We had a lot of grains. We had heaps of vegetables and fruits. It was very, very based on fruits and vegetables and nuts and seeds and stuff like that. But the funny thing is that what I discovered, and legumes, of course, And the funny thing is that what I discovered was that I am sensitive to pretty much every protein, plant-based protein, or even eggs.
All right.
So nuts and seeds were okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a few, some nuts were also not okay, but most of the nuts and seeds are okay. And I had to go back to eating meat because it was my health versus, you know, thinking about the animals and all of that, which is a very difficult step for me to do. I was walking around with my kids outside going like, look at this poor cow. Someone's going to eat it one day, you know, and for me to have to switch and to make that switch in my brain was huge, let alone the fact that there was a lot of, you know, I don't know, leek and green peas and beans and like all of these beautiful things that every human on earth thinks is the most healthy thing that you can have.
You're sensitive to them.
Yeah.
But that's, I like that you point that out, because it's a common misconception that, you know, everything that you might be eating that is healthy is just okay for you.
Yeah.
But if you, like your history was a long history of antibiotics that you've developed, obviously leaky gut, and that the things that you've been eating every single day is probably what you've developed a sensitivity if you have not healed the gut. Okay, so take me to that part. Did you actually do a whole gut healing protocol? Am I jumping the gun?
You are actually.
Okay.
Yeah, no, because well, what the other things that I discovered with the blood test is also that, of course, because of the antibiotics and everything, I wasn't absorbing minerals, vitamins, you know, fats and things like that. So I was very low on most amino acids. I knew I was chronically low on iron. Again, vitamins, a lot of vitamins and minerals, omegas, omega-3 and things like that. And of course the huge list of food sensitivities. So for me, I had to switch my diet around. I had to get a huge amount of supplements and, you know, and try to heal my gut, which again, I came in there saying, look, I have a perfect diet. My stool is perfect. Like everything is perfect. Everything is by the book. And I had to really kind of switch everything and say, okay, wow, I need to, you know, this is my body, what my body needs.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that this happened about, I don't know how long ago that was already. And I was already coaching in one way, shape or form. I started with kids' healthy cooking classes and stuff like that. And then parents actually asked me to come to their home and help them figure things out. And so I was coaching. And by the time I came to that doctor, I was already a certified health coach.
Okay.
And that probably also helped me make that decision. And so I made those changes. And funny enough, I still had certain problems and I still, you know, like the inflammation, for example. So again, every single step that I did took away some of those things, but certain ones were still around. And like I said at the beginning, I now know, I now can name the problem, which is Sibo, which is not something anyone wants.
Yeah. Do you want to explain for the people listening what Sibo is?
Sure. So Sibo is a small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. Basically, if you imagine your digestive system, right? We have the stomach, we have the small intestines and the large intestines. And the large intestines is where most bacteria and fungi and everything is. It sits right there. And when we have everyone heard of like an overgrowth, right? Like a yeast overgrowth, a Candida overgrowth. So basically the idea of an overgrowth is when those bacterias, fungi, whatever it may be, go up towards the small intestines and they're not supposed to be there. Right.
That's
and
Sibo.
So exactly.
The bacteria in the wrong place.
Exactly. It just takes over a different area that it should not be. And so, and it wreaks a lot of havoc. I mean, it's IBS is one of the symptoms, and of course, you know, the treatment is just going on a very, very strict diet for a while to kill off that bacteria in that certain area. Most doctors go for an antibiotic treatment as well before even starting the diet. I'm happy to say that my doctor kind of is trying to move away from that, and we're going to try with supplements and things like that as well, and natural things. And so it is, you know, that's kind of like the latest thing. when people see me and hear me talk and see me move and stuff, they're like, there's nothing wrong with this lady. I've had so many people say that. And I mean, I'm 180 degrees from what I was when my kids were born, 100%, and before, to be honest. But when you go on that journey to be healthier, feeling good feels so good.
Yeah.
That you just always want to kind of like find your Superman powers, right? You want to find that place where you don't have, bloating or gas. You don't have, certain, I don't know, reactions for certain things. And when you clean up your diet to begin with, it's so much easier to feel your body and to understand what your body actually needs. And it's a fun, I think it's a fun experience. It's a fun experiment as well.
Yeah. So just going back a little bit to the Sibo thing, how did your doctor diagnose you? Because there are a number of different tests, and the hydrogen and methane, which one are you? And
I did the breath test.
Yeah.
Which basically means that you have to go on kind of, you shouldn't have certain things about a week before, and then 48 hours before you go on this just rice and chicken breast and salt and pepper diet, which was just the worst for me. And then you fast for about 12 hours, and then you do every 20 minutes you breathe into this thing after drinking like a sugar solution.
Yeah. Okay.
And it basically checks if you're fermenting that stuff. And so that was the test that we chose to do. It was very clear cut for me. There was no way to mistake it. It was like, yep, 100% you have SIBO. Mm-hmm. I don't actually remember which one I have.
Which one you have? Okay.
Yeah, because I was sitting there kind of going like, please don't let it, like, I wasn't sure what I wanted it to be. On the one hand, you don't want it to be SIBO because that's probably like the most extreme diet that you have to go on to kill it off. At the same time, I wanted an answer.
Yeah. Okay.
And so honestly, I'm glad. And I'm glad that I went through that journey before, because now the diet itself is not that hard. I think it's harder for me specifically because even some vegetables that I'm allowed to eat, I'm sensitive to.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So certain things I'm not even supposed to have in general. But I'm kind of hoping that some of those things will at least be allowed after. Like I would love to eat eggs again. I would love to eat green beans and peas and things like that. So I am kind of secretly hoping that I would be able to heal my gut in a way that I can have certain foods that I'm sensitive to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a complicated process, especially if you get a diagnosis of SIBO, because it's not an easy thing to reverse. And once you reversed it, it's also something that can come back, right?
Yeah.
And often comes back. One other thing I wanted to point out is also that SIBO, did you figure out what the kind of cause of the SIBO was, or is it really just a downstream effect from all the antibiotics that you?
We're assuming that was the case, because not only did I get for many years since I was born a lot of antibiotics, when I was in my kind of mid-20s, I also went to the hospital with an ulcer, bleeding ulcer.
Oh, okay.
And I somehow knew that I had an ulcer my whole life, because it's like a family thing. They're like, oh, my ulcer. And so I had these pains, but I went to the hospital in an emergency. They checked. They're like, yep, you have an ulcer and it's bleeding. Here's like a cocktail of antibiotics. Mm-hmm. And from that moment on, I actually remember very clearly that my immune system was really suffering. So, it's hard to say exactly what triggered it, but I'm sure that those kind of like times in my life, I mean, there's no other way to explain it. And of course, the fact that I was still eating eggs and I was still eating legumes and I was still eating the foods that I actually was super sensitive to didn't help.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. It was just exacerbating it, right? So is your diet now a fully SIBO diet? Very, how would I say, a constrained kind of diet? What are you allowed to eat at the moment?
Oh my God, not much.
As somebody who loves cooking, how are you managing it with your family and your husband and kids? Yeah.
So my husband, my husband always suffered from IBS. Funny enough, he had like the perfect childhood, probably hardly any antibiotics and things like that. But he's been suffering from IBS since I've known him. Definitely has a food baby. Every time he eats, his belly, and he's a slim guy, he's like a, you know, stick figure, but as soon as he eats, his belly kind of comes out bloated. And so he is actually interested in kind of trying it out with me.
Okay.
We haven't kicked it off yet because we got the results. I was waiting for a list of supplements from the doctor, which, as you know, they're super busy. So I was like, please, can I have and now I need to I literally got it last night. So I need to order the supplements and start. But what I did was already make a menu plan. Yeah, of course I got a bunch of books, and now I made a menu plan. And I'm, it's a sad one. I mean, like, it is a sad one. The first week is chicken and rice again, and zucchini. Thank God for zucchini. And and every week it kind of gets a little bit better. But again, because of my problem with other food sensitivities, it's very, very limited. But I'm hoping that at least we'll be able to, get to a point where I don't react to so many things, or that I can go back to, I'm retroactively missing my vegetables now. But it is what it is. I'm actually excited to start. I want to see the results. And that's kind of, I always say your body is your science. And so to get to a point where you realize, okay, this is good, this isn't, it's a fun experiment.
So what are those last symptoms that you want to just get rid of? It sounded like it was the bloating and...
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's mainly bloating, the food baby, as we call it. So immediately bloating when you eat. But the uncomfortable feeling, like, I don't really care about the aesthetics of it. It's more like feeling bloated, feeling gassy, and and hoping that the little last things that I still had from that huge list that I told you before, I do have kind of reoccurring inflammation if I'm not super careful, and things like that. And I'm hoping that those things will at least kind of die down. So those are the last ones. I mean, again, I feel amazing, but those little things now, because they're the ones that that kind of come back here and there, and you're like, makes you think, like, what did I eat and what did I do? Those are the ones that I'm quite curious to see how they react to all of this.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Okay. So this journey has been quite a long one of discovery, and that's the process that we all just got to be happy with. It is what it is, and we're trying to find out what's ticking in our bodies. And it's good that you've developed this real sense of knowing when things are good and when things aren't, right?
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that if I had known, and I think when I just started this journey, health coaches were not a thing. What we do was not a thing at all. And I think it would have been so much more helpful to me to actually know that there's someone there to hold my hand and to help me try to figure things out, because I was on my own. I was on my own with Google, which I know is 50% garbage, right? Anyone can post anything. And so just kind of stuck to following experts. And again, I have, I don't know, 100 books on nutrition, and it will go 50-50. One will say, eat your meat and go keto. And another one will go, no, go vegan. It's just
so individual. Exactly.
It's totally individual. And so I think that if I had that help, it would definitely have cut short this whole journey. But again, I think Sibo wasn't even a word anyone knew about 12 years ago. So it's just, I'm hoping that my experience will help me to help others, and will help others to just kind of see that sometimes it takes 3 months and you're amazing. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks, right? Sometimes it takes 3 months, sometimes it takes a year, and sometimes it takes a lifetime. But I think as long as we are keeping to that course of being healthier, I think that's the most important part.
Every day a little bit better, or at least moving in that direction.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's a great segue into, into that whole health coaching thing and you helping people. So what advice would you have for somebody who has been on that kind of doctor to doctor to doctor, so many people not having an answer for them? What advice, or what would you say to them?
I would definitely say, I always do, check for functional medicine. I think that's one of the things that I see it with all of my clients. Most of them are going to the same doctors that I work with, and they are getting answers, and it's very refreshing. Get second opinions, talk to other certified health coaches, and just people who have studied this. It's such a new science. It's so new, and it's so convoluting to try and understand that there's no straight answer for anyone, because my body is different than yours, than the other person, and the other person. So just be open-minded, understand that you need to be connected to your own body, and that's the most important part. And get some help, get some experts around you to help you shorten that journey to like a healthier way.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks so much for sharing your story. It was wonderful to hear, and I wish you all the best of luck on your new Sibo diet.
Thank you. I need it.
On you in the kitchen, Danna in the kitchen with 3 things to cook. Well,
I'm just trying to figure out how many things I can make with zucchini.
I'm sure you'll be creative. You are very creative.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to catching up with you again. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.